everyone, it's RuPaul's Drag Race Season 13, Episode 12, Nice Girls Roast. I apologize, I'm having some sort of allergic reaction, so I don't wear makeup, a lot of makeup on the best of days, and today I'm wearing none, and you can tell, you can see I just washed my face with a little water and pat it dry. Okay, so we're down to the final six, the mini challenge, what they've done, variation that they've done a lot of times, which is one person is like two people come together to do some sort of acting comedy challenge. In this case, it was they would sit on their partner, and their partner would be the hands, and the other one would be the face, and they put on makeup. And this was the funniest possible. It was Utica and Got Mick, Simone and Olivia, Candy and Rose. Candy and Rose won, and they got to pick the order. I don't know. I thought they were all kind of equally funny, but that's how I feel about most of these mini challenges. So they're going to do a Good Girls Roast, which is going to roast some fan favorites or some miscongenialities. They made a point of referring to Valentina as fan favorite. So they have Valentina, Heidi N Closet, and Nina West. It was kind of weird because Candy and Rose were like, we're going to put in order, and Rose's like, I'm going to make sure that I take care of myself. And then they picked like the two hardest positions, the opening and the closing. Although, you know, they talk about things being hard, and the truth is I've done stand-up once and bombed horribly, and the hardest can be going after someone who's really good, and you kind of don't know who that is. You could guess, and this time, the one thing that confused me was that they were so sure that Gottmik was going to do super good, but Gottmik didn't think Gottmik would do really good. So I'm wondering, and they were right, Gottmik did do really well, but it was kind of a little confusing as to why they thought she would do so well, and they were so sure of it when she wasn't. And I didn't head into it going, oh, well, clearly Gottmik's going to nail this, because stand-up comedy is a lot more about confidence. And you can have two people tell the same joke, and one time it'll be hilarious and one time it wouldn't. And stand-up comedians will even tell you, like, you don't have control over the room. You know, they can totally bomb. Jerry Seinfeld has documentaries. He has a whole series, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, talking about the fact that you have to win over an audience. I listen to podcasts, Jackie and Laurie, where they talk about all the time about like how you have to, like, if you go up after someone who totally bombs and is misogynistic and sexist, you've got to like win the crowd back, like this whole thing. So this idea that they just knew she was going to do well, they were right, but I wasn't sure why, and I would be curious. I wish we could have heard more about why. Anyway, they decide Candy's going to open, Simone, Utica, Gottmik, Olivia, and Rose. And this whole episode can be summed up with Gottmik, Rose, and Candy do well, Utica, Simone, and Olivia bomb. I mean, there was no middle ground. There were like, Olivia had a few jokes that worked, and maybe the other three had a few jokes that didn't work, but the split between the two groups was rooms apart, and no one doubted that, and everyone knew it. So the one thing is, I'm looking, people are really going after Utica like she stabbed someone on stage. She bombed. There's no doubt about it that she bombed. But comedy's hard, and it's hard if you don't understand a roast humor. It's really tough because from the outside it just looks mean. And there's a whole thing about, you know, Sarah Silverman did a whole podcast, I think in the last week or two, where she talks about a lot of the jokes that she made about Paris Hilton and how she regrets a lot of them. And, you know, she doesn't necessarily wouldn't do roast the same way anymore. And I heard people going, oh, it's snowflake culture. It's just a matter of, maybe as we get more educated, things don't seem as funny. And that's kind of how I feel about some stand-up, when people make comments about stuff and I go, if you know the information behind it, it's just not as funny. And anyway, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do roast. I'm just saying they're hard, and any art form is really hard if you don't get it. So, like, I enjoy light comedy. I don't enjoy dark, edgy comedy. It's just not my thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then when I attempt to be a little edgy, I can't find that ground because I don't understand what it is. And I think that's the case with Utica, in that when she looked at it, she just said, oh, they're being mean. And they are. And I mean, her big mistake, which was true through the whole thing, is not taking the feedback, but I also feel bad for Utica because it's clearly that Utica's awkward, and as someone who is also awkward in situations and would be incredibly awkward on TV and would be incredibly awkward on a competitive show, you just don't know what to do. And I was a little like kind of over the whole Untucked where they were like really criticizing, well, it doesn't seem like you appreciate it. And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like Candy's always got a lot to tell everybody else about how they're performing and then takes almost no feedback. She has taken it from the judges. We've discussed that in past recaps, but she really is just all over everybody else. And it's like, okay, maybe that's not your job there. Anyway, so they do the roast. Utica's just an absolute mess, goes in there, doesn't understand it, doesn't take their feedback, super cringy to watch. As someone who has bombed on stage, and I probably didn't bomb as bad as her, my memory, it's just like, it's like a visceral response. I can feel the panic. So I really relate to, especially Simone was kind of how I did it, which is like, a lot of the jokes had potential, but they were too long or rambly, or you didn't hit the right beat. You have to control your voice, all that kind of stuff. Same with Olivia. Olivia and Simone are probably more in my experience. Olivia had some good jokes, although Olivia's, you know, like they're all over Utica, but Olivia's also like, I think I did pretty well. And it's like, yeah, you had a couple of jokes that landed, but there was huge stretches where no one laughed. Anyway, like I said, they go through Candy. I will say this, I've been really tough on Candy. Even this particular recap, Candy's performance was very good. That dress looked amazing. The cinch was perfect. I think it's the best that she's looked the whole season. The stand-up routine, I would have cut the bitches in half because it felt like she really relied on that. I was kind of surprised they didn't mention that, but they gave her the win, so maybe they didn't want to do anything that looked like criticism. To me, though, I felt like she relies on the word bitch too much. And just, there could have been funnier words that could have gone there, but it felt like a crutch. Otherwise, though, I think Candy did really well. I've been really tough on her this season, and so I feel like it's only fair for me to fully acknowledge that her being in the top 3, there's no doubt. I mean, you cannot tell me that she doesn't deserve to be in the top 3. Did I think that she deserved to win? I mean, kind of. I mean, they certainly think that she's performed super well on a lot of challenges, so if I agreed with that, then it was her due. I just don't think that she's done as well in the challenges as they consistently thought. And on this challenge alone, I could see it have going to Rose or Gottmik, but then I feel like Gottmik's got a couple of ones that I felt like maybe she didn't deserve to win. Anyway, so do I have a problem with the judging? Not really. But there's no doubt for me that Candy should have been the top. Simone, my note was so bad. I felt for her. You could feel that nervous energy. She was trying. It was so painful. Utica, oh, whoa, oh gosh, even worse. I mean, it got so bad that the judges had to kind of heckle just to keep the energy up. I mean, it was painful. You could tell that everyone there was like, oh, that's such a bad joke. Oh, Gottmik, so good. No complaints, so much stronger. I don't know why they alone picked her out as she should be a comedian, because I felt like that could have been given to, I think it just should have been like 2 groups, and it should have been Candy, Gottmik, and Rose, and then everyone else. Anyway, and then Olivia, I wrote not the worst, but not good. So there was a couple of jokes in there that were good, but, and then Rose was really good. After all this up and down energy. So I was not at all surprised when we have these 2 groups, Simone and Utica. I didn't even see, I kind of watched I knew Utica was going home. You don't get to, unless the person you're lip syncing against, like, doesn't know any of the words, to speak of Valentina, leaves a mask on, doesn't know any of the words, walks off stage, you're not winning your 3rd lip sync. Like, you're just not. That's just not how this show has ever worked. You would have to be so good. It would have to be where the other person just really did like a Charlie walked off stage at Ginny Lemon. I mean, it would really have to be that level to win your third lip sync. So I didn't even look. But all that being said, I didn't even see Utica in this. I thought Simone did pretty good. I think that the song choice was meant to kind of give it to Simone. And in the sense, Simone just, you know, reasonably deserved it in the sense that she's done so well. And Utica's been in the bottom. She's been in the bottom multiple times. She's been in the bottom twice in a row. So I don't think Utica deserves the hate that she's getting, especially on Twitter about, like, basically the idea is that she's this huge problematic person. I don't think that's the case. Were the jokes bad? Yeah, but I kind of feel like roast jokes in general are either funny or they're super bad. Like, they're super, super bad. And if they're, like, they're bad and they're not mean, then you didn't even try to do the challenge. So it's kind of like, yeah, they were bad. Does she deserve to go home? Yeah, I think so, especially because they haven't really seen her. They haven't been seeing her doing good the way that I think the rest of us have. Like, I don't think she should have been in the bottom last week. But it was pretty obvious. It's the same thing with Candy. I don't know that I would have given her the win if I had been the judges, but the judges see something. Everyone talks about how hilarious she is. I mean, okay. For me, it's kind of, you know, a lot of times it's a miss, but whatever. It does bother me. I think the big thing is if you watch Untucked, she's got a lot to say about a lot of people that I think affects my view of her. But anyway, I don't have a problem with her winning, and I think this episode is the ideal Candy. And what I mean is that any artist will tell you it's really hard to find your voice. And it's not just your voice, it's also like, so here's who you are, and here's what the public wants, and you have to find that overlap. And every author I know does that, and sometimes it's like, sometimes you find it by going, screw you guys, I'm gonna do what I want. Sometimes you find it by doing the opposite, by going, okay, there's all this stuff I want, but you really like this thing. But either way, it ends up being this overlap. And sometimes it's because you're at the wrong audience, and when you say, screw it, I'm doing my own thing, you find your audience, whatever. But it's not as simple as just be yourself. It's like this weird, like you find that one subset of yourself that's truly you, that also has an audience. And I think this episode showed Candy, to me at least, as an audience, that that's the Candy that I want. Now she might say, I don't care. I don't care if a few, you know, white women like this. She'll have to just see, like, does she get a ton of positive feedback from this and go, yeah, you know, or does she look at it and go, yeah, that is the version of me that I think is best. And that's the one I feel most comfortable with, and I like the way people responded. That's really up to her. Same way that Utica found that I don't think Utica and necessarily comedy challenges in the idea of performance comedy is that overlap, but she might find that just being, like she said, the only things that got laughs were the things that she kind of said offhand. Okay, well, that's still comedy, so you have to kind of figure it out. Anyway, it looks like we're going to have, and I think I said this last week too, I'd have to go check, but it looks to me pretty inevitable that our top four, I don't know if they're going to do a top four or top three. We've had seasons that have done kind of each, but it's usually top three, but it seems like it's a pretty, to me, it seems like a given. Simone, Rosé, got Mick, top three. If it's a top four, I think they really want Candy in there. I won't actually be surprised if Candy replaces one of the three, but I would be heartbroken to even guess at which of the three it would be. But they just really seem to see her as a top contender for the crown. And I personally don't see it. I feel like there's a really strong argument for Simone, Gottmik, and Rosé. But I have to say that based on the judging and how the judges feel, I would say the most likely to be out of those three would be Rosé. Not because I think it deserves, but based on the way that they've been judging things. They've overlooked her repeatedly in the past, and so I could see that happening again. I hope it doesn't happen. I really feel like Simone, Gottmik, and Rosé have earned the top three. So hit me up in the comments and tell me what you think. Okay, bye.